my name's Tommy.
Hi, Tommy.
Rockin'.
Is it real Tommy Tallarico?
It is. And I know what you're thinking to yourself. Damn, you're short. I look bigger on TV, don't I? Fooled you. I wanted to talk to you guys. I'll take a bunch of questions later, and I guess this is the last one of the day, isn't it? Like in this room, so I'll keep going forever. No one can kick us out. Lock the doors! No, I'll take questions and stuff later on, but, and I also have this is the very first time this has ever appeared in public, but these are the DVD and the Blu-ray for Video Games Live. And this new CD as well. And I'm going to give these away at the end of the talk. So, never been released to the public. But I can promise you guys, I don't want to see this shit on LimeWire or something tomorrow. I don't want to see no shit on YouTube. So I'll give those away later. Hopefully, I'm trying to get this thing to work so that I can actually play some of the DVD. It came out really cool. Anyway, so yeah, I want to talk about a couple things. The video game industry itself and best way if people are interested in getting into the video game industry, what the best way to do that is. I've been a video game composer for over 20 years now, and I've worked on over 300 video games. And I'm actually in the Guinness Book of World's Record as the person who's worked on the most video games in life. And yeah, crazy. Yeah. And so a lot of people always ask, how did you get into the video game industry? And, do you have any tips to get in? And there's a couple different things. I'll just give you some general tips. In general, there's the great thing about the video game industry is, unlike the film industry, which is very, very difficult to get in, the game industry is really really open, believe it or not, to to new people and getting new people in, and you don't necessarily have to go to school. I never went to college for any of this crap, so it's a bonus, right? But there's definitely a number of things that you can do to increase your chances. One of the things is in San Francisco every year, it's called the Game Developers Conference, and GDC as it's known as, and that's where all of the game designers and developers and producers and audio people and artists and everybody in there, we all get together, and for like, there's about 15,000 people all over the world, and they kind of descend upon this thing. They have like a whole job fair, but they also have, you'll learn more in like 4 days there than 4 years of college in regards to the video game industry. So that's a really great place to go. It's a Game Developers Conference, like if you're really serious about getting in. And it's cool, you'll be walking down the halls like, oh, there's Will Wright, and sit next to Miyamoto at lunch, so it's pretty, just crazy. Everybody's everywhere there. And they have, speeches and roundtable discussions, but it's a great way to meet people, because the game industry, it's all about networking. So that's really cool, is to, know people. When you get to know people and you become their friends. And this Game Developers Conference, another great way though is, and the Game Developers website is gdconf.com if anyone's interested. But another great way is the International Game Developers Association, IGDA, and that's .org, because it's a nonprofit organization. And they actually have a deal right here in Toronto as well. So they have like little factions kind of all over the world, and it's where a lot of professional but independent game developers kind of gather and get together and share ideas, and they usually have like monthly meetings and things like that. Again, though, another great way to like meet people and get your foot in the door. And that's a great thing. If anyone's interested in getting into the game industry, now's a great time, because there's so many, because of the iPhone and all the downloadable apps and Xbox Live and all that stuff. There's so many like little independent developers. It kind of reminds me when I first got in the industry over 20 years ago, it was literally like 2 or 3 people in a room, and we'd like create an entire game, you know, like just 2 or 3 people back then. And now, and then like in the kind of late 90s and early part of the century, you know, it was like teams of like 200-300 people, you know, for projects, and it's still like that for some of the bigger games. But now, because of the, you know, because of all the iPhone stuff and all the cool downloadable apps, it's like a lot of independent game developers are like, you know, making a living and, you know, doing some stuff to, you know, to get out there and kind of climb the ladder. So it's a great place to meet people, and, you know, again, you can get 2 or 3 people together and make a game these days again, which is so cool. I think some of the best ideas, you know, come from the indie developers. But anyway, so yeah, so get in the game industry. If people are particularly interested in getting into the video game music side of things, there's a great nonprofit organization that I started over 9 years ago called the Game Audio Network Guild. The letters spell out gang. And again, that N in the network, you know, networking is so important. Actually, I put the N in there because without it, it would just be the Game Audio Guild, and it'd be GAG, and that would suck. So we didn't want to do that, so I had to come up with something with an N. No, but audiogang.org is the website there, and we have over 2,000 professional and student, you know, people interested, musicians, composers, sound designers, voiceover people, 2,000 people from all over the world. And, you know, all the composers from Japan are in the thing, and, you know, everyone from Uematsu and Koji Kondo to all the great Marty O'Donnell and all the great composers over here in Europe and everything. So, anyway, so that's a great, and there's also, though, there's a bunch of great books as well. There's a lot of great books. Game testing, a great way to get in the industry. In fact, I'll tell you my story, how I got into the game industry. I grew up in Massachusetts, in Springfield, and actually, but my mom, I spent a lot of my summers here in the area in St. Catharines, Ontario. That's where my mom is the youngest of 13 brothers and sisters. And they all, so I have 250 relatives on this side. They all live in St. Catharines area. And so I come out here a lot. But so half Canadian. And yay! And a lot of the, and so when I turned 21, I got in my car, left my parents crying on the doorstep, and I went to California. My 2 greatest loves growing up were always video games and music. But I never ever thought to put the 2 together because, I mean, there's no such thing as a video game composer when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. But, I mean, when I was 10 years old, I used to take my dad's big old cassette recorder, and I'd go down to the arcade and or the pizza shops. That's where all the video games were back then. And I would record all my favorite video games on cassette. And then I'd come home and I'd record all my favorite home games, like my Intellivision, Atari 2600, Commodore 64, Apple II. And I'd record all my favorite game soundtracks on a cassette tape, and I would splice the tapes together. This is when I was about 10 years old, so it was like the late 70s. And I would take the cassette and I'd splice all my favorite songs together so that I wouldn't lose quality. And then I would invite my neighborhood friends over, and I'd charge them a nickel. And I would get up in front of the TV and grab a guitar and play the cassette and put my favorite video games behind me and pretend like I was like putting on a concert. So I guess those were the first video games live shows were back then in the late 70s. But